these are some cues of ways to recruit or turn on the pelvic floor muscles. Because 40 to 60% of women are able to turn on these pelvic floor muscles just with verbal instructions and cues. Now, if it's difficult for you, you may need a little bit more help, and don't be embarrassed. I'd rather you really know how to turn on those pelvic floor muscles correctly and coordinating them, tightening and relaxing. And a pelvic floor physical therapist can be very helpful. There's other ways like biofeedback, where you can actually see on a screen where your muscles contract and relax. This is sometimes a black hole, and it's like, I don't know about this pelvic floor. I want to know more about it. So let's talk about a couple of these cues. Again, very common. You'll read articles or hear people talk about, oh yeah, stop the flow of urine. Good way to turn on the pelvic floor muscles, wrong way, wrong time. So know that, yes, you can stop the flow of urine, but don't do that every time that you go to the bathroom. You're going to cause urine retention and dysfunction and discoordination between your pelvic floor, your bladder, and the brain, and we don't want to do that. So let's try some other ones. You can put your hand on your underwear between your pubic bone and your tailbone, and you can blow out and tighten. Can you feel that lift away from your hand? If that's difficult, take a washcloth and sit on it, straddle it like a saddle, and you should lift away from that washcloth. Another thing to do is to think about, remember those sits bones, the bones on either side of underneath your butt? Think about drawing this together and think about pulling up a blueberry. Remember, we talked about the vulva, and think about pulling the labia lips together and closing the vaginal opening and pulling in. So that's another thing. The pelvic floor also can be associated with a jellyfish. Think about. Very good. Now, another thing that you can do, and women find this very beneficial, is sitting on a birthing ball or a TheraBall, a circle one. Sit on it, and you're pushing down onto that soft surface. That gives you feedback, so you can pull away from that TheraBall. Now, if you lean forward just a little bit and you're arching your back, you're more on the front, more vaginal. You can tighten and you'll feel more vaginal contraction. If you kind of lean back and kind of round your back just a little bit, you're probably going to feel more rectally around the anus. So you can feel front to back. Now, good pelvic floor contraction uses both vaginal and rectal. Don't leave one out. You want them to both pull up. You need all those muscles, because if you're only recruiting the pelvic floor muscles and using part of them, you're not going to get a strong contraction. Again, as we're talking about this, you want to make sure that if you pull up and in, and then you relax, tighten and relax. And there are several ways to work on the pelvic floor muscles. There's short contractions and long contractions. Short contractions are going to help you with cough, laugh, sneeze. Those short movements that you really need a quick contraction there. And then there's a longer hold when you're trying to unlock the front door and you're trying to make it to the bathroom, or you're carrying your groceries in. So we're working on more of a longer contraction. And if you work on that, it's a 10-second hold. You're building up to it. Many women start at 3, 4, 5 seconds and then rest for at least 5 to 10 seconds in between. Short contractions are more like 1 or 2 seconds and then rest for 2 seconds. Hold and relax. Hold and relax. And now as you're doing this, just do maybe 5 repetitions. But if the muscles get very tired and you can't feel that contraction, then just rest. Wait a couple hours, work on it again. Don't over fatigue these muscles. They're very sometimes weak. They take some retraining and some coordination. So those are some ways to identify the pelvic floor muscles. Another way that women find it helpful also is to squeeze around the penis, and that gives you feedback. Now, don't be surprised if your partner cannot feel you squeeze around the penis, because that pelvic floor contraction sometimes is very light. But just keep working on it. We as women benefit from having some feedback as well. So identifying the pelvic floor muscles is very important. Contraction is good, but relaxing is important also.